But how far from reality, though, is the premise of 28 Days Later? And how protected are we from a new killer pandemic?
What if a deadly pandemic happened due to an animal-to-human transmission of a deadly virus, and it got out to the general population after a lab leak? Wouldn't that be crazy?
The disease is the same name as the lab.
And 28 days later, that virus is called rage and leaves the infected with a murderous desire to kill anyone they come into contact with. The infection is transmitted through chimpanzees that are experimented on, with the hope of curing rage and anger forever. This lab leak infects all of England over the course of a month. 28 Days Later is the only film we're discussing this month that's debated by horror fans on whether or not it's technically a zombie film. The infected are not dead. They are sick from a blood-borne illness, and their object is not to consume but to infect and kill. One of the most disconcerting things about the infected is that they continually vomit up excess blood, which then infects anyone who comes into contact with it. Once they are infected, you have between 10 and 20 seconds to kill the infected before they come back, where the bite usually takes a while to kill and turn the bitten. Whether or not it's technically of the zombie genre, it's undeniable that this film poured some much-needed vitality into a 40-year-old genre. A decade later, World War Z would take the type of infected created by Danny Boyle and Alex Garland and use them for an actual zombie movie. In World War Z, the 10 to 20 second window became a 12-second window, but otherwise the infected were very similar. A year after the release of 28 Days Later, Robert Kirkman started the Walking Dead comic series with an incredibly similar opening. Rick Grimes, like Jim 28 Days Later, awakens from a coma 4 to 5 weeks after the initial outbreak. They both walk first through a hospital, and then through an abandoned city in the hope of finding their families. Interestingly, Alex Garland has stated that his original inspiration for 28 Days Later was not the zombie film genre, but a book, The Day of the Triffids, by John Wyndham, about a killer plant that rampages through England, killing people. It was made into a movie in 1962 and is referenced in the opening to Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Fight a trifid that spits poison and kills.
I'm sure we'll get into the is 28 Days Later a zombie movie debate tonight, but I hope we can all agree that quarantining England isn't a bad idea.
What would you do with a diseased little island? They quarantined us.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, let me say, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live show, send us a super chat. We are absolutely obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer it. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are available on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Jan Duworld, illustrator, book cover artist, comic designer, and artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and Bad Takes. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal and the frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. They just got back from touring on the East Coast. Jeremy Salmon, host of Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person. I, of course, am your long-suffering host, Forrest Miller. Without further ado, let's get started.
Suffering, huh?
He was
suffering from success, DJ Khaled.
Exactly. That's what I say.
Is that what he called it? Yeah.
There was an album that he dropped like in 2010 or something, and it's him with his hand like this, and he's like suffering from success.
I feel the same way. I have the same problems.
You and DJ Khaled on tour together.
Exactly. Like this. I tell you. I saw Jeremy on tour though. That was cool. This seems like a long time ago now, but that was a good time.
That was a full. No, it was only that was just a month ago. Wow, geez, that has been.
It seems like last week, and it seems like last year at the same time.
Yeah, it was a good. Nice little 6 weeks.
Yep. So there you go.
Well,
I'm on the slow boat of meeting everybody on this show that isn't in the band.
You're back on the East Coast right now, though, and I completely it didn't occur to me to take out the that you just got back from touring on the. I mean, you did just get back from touring on the East Coast, but you're back there already.
Yep. Thanks for knocking me out.
Yeah. Now they have like an entire coast to stalk you from.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. Yeah. It's somewhere on the East Coast. Figure it out, people. But we're gonna be back on the West Coast actually next month to make up that Oakland show, and we're playing LA and Joshua Tree too. So, are we doing the plugs already? Boy, that show went quick. Anyway,
Hey.
Yeah, kind of best to break podcast podcast orthodoxy and like front load the plugs, because otherwise
that's when people are paying attention. Exactly. No, but it was very nice meeting Jeremy at the Revolution Hall show in Portland. I don't care what anybody says; he's a great guy.
Well, what everybody else who's been on this panel says,
So to immediately address 28 Days Later, which I think is a genius movie, by the way, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's sort of shot at the dawning of digital filmmaking, so certain aspects of that have not aged as well, but I think it still holds up and actually kind of adds to the overall feel of it. As far as the infected versus zombies, I think it's an academic argument that is somewhat not.
What are we if not an academic podcast?
Well, sure, exactly. Well, actually, but I think the fact that they're fast, whether the logic of it makes sense, like in that Zack Snyder movie or in World War Z or whatever, it's impossible to understate how revolutionary that was at the time, and how revolutionary this was. Where again, the biggest problem in this movie isn't the zombies. It's like I mean, it's or the infected or whatever. It's like, oh no, humans are terrible too. Which again, like that's like Walking Dead's brand proposition, right? I mean, that's like the whole like Robert Kirkman thing.
They're not only fast, but they're all retired athletes. I don't know how they only infected retired athletes, but
they all haul ass. That's for sure. Yeah, every one of them hauls ass.
Yeah, they literally only hired. They went to a place that actually had like retired athletes that can no longer perform their sports, and they hired them in mass to play like the infected in this. I didn't even know that was like a thing you could do, but it's a thing that I guess Danny Boyle knew that you could do.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's England.
Well,
they got a weird system with retired athletes.
I can't play cricket anymore.
Although I think cricketers, I don't know if they're the best at running, but it's much like how I don't know, maybe professional baseball players, and I am from Michigan, so I do remember Cecil Fielder. We're not necessarily in the top academic build for the particular gig. Although, well, two things. One is there is. Well, first, it's such an incredibly. I wouldn't say internet argument. I'll say a Reddit argument about kind of like the internet fan culture pedanticism of whether it is or not. It's kind of like all the logic of the infection factors are all the same, but Return of the Living Dead had running zombies.
They did. Also, and that was never explained either, and we talked. About that,
and it just made it funnier.
Yeah, so that's all you need to know, really. But
yeah,
but this definitely started a trend of running zombies, like your World War Z, as mentioned, the Zack Snyder movie that they called Dawn of the Dead. Like it became like a thing for a while. Oh no, zombies are fast now, and it was started by 28 Days Later. I mean, because it wasn't.
I can't believe they made zombies fast now. What's the deal?
but to be clear, because I did see this in the theater, it was absolutely terrifying to be like, oh whoa, like that's crazy, and like for instance, like spoiler alert, when Brendan Gleeson's character is all pissed off and he's like yells at that bird who's like pecking at like the body, and like this single drop of blood goes into his eye and infects him, and it's like, oh my god, crazy, that's so messed up, because it's like, okay, now he's got 10 seconds before he changes, and he was like being like kind of a dick previously. Yeah. It's so heartbreaking, and it's amazing that there's actually a storyboarded ending to this that totally bypasses the whole Chris Eccleston military plot entirely, and involves like some machine of God that is like you get a zombie, you can do a transfusion with someone else, and then they become like infected, but that person's okay. So it was basically a thin conceit to get the Cillian Murphy character to basically take the bullet for Brendan Gleeson because he had like less to lose. But then they were like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Why would that? And so they started like Garland and Boyle were like questioning. We're like, yeah, let's not do that
because it's a blood transfusion in that ending, and the whole thing is like it takes like 10 to 15 seconds to infect you. So like, how can you do a blood transfusion?
Yeah, so you're violating your own rules with that, right? And so
it's
that means that you have to have fast doctors. Fast zombies and
Well, that's almost. I mean, not only does it change the conceit, it's almost like it's a. I mean, at some point that turns it into like dealing with vampiricism almost.
Yeah.
But it's and it reminds me of like the '90s when Dark Horse Comics got the Alien franchise, and eventually in that one, I think in some of the later stories they figured out how like people had figured out this surgical procedure to remove a chest burster, and it's kind of a thing. It's an interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily cheap, kind of a cheap end run around, but it's diffusing the threat it's diffusing the threat of that's the thing is like the infection and the conduit of like how the characters aren't killed, but they're definitely it's removing the damnation from the characters because it's at one point
it lowers the stakes. Yeah, for sure.
They are fated to die, or they have an ill fate, and doing this removes that fate.
Yeah, and I think that's key to what makes 28 Days Later so vital is the fact that you see like at the beginning, like one of the characters like gets infected, right? And like and she doesn't even hesitate for a second, and he's like, whoa, because like it's like the whole like I just got up thing, which again, Walking Dead totally used as well. But like you have to be that ruthless because you have seconds to act. And the next thing you know, you've got to infect a person coming for you that will then infect you. And again, it's really hard to describe how revolutionary this was as a storytelling vehicle. And it's amazing to me that Danny Boyle was the whole reason he even did it this way is he's super fed up with like Hollywood post Trainspotting. And they just frustrated of like his lack of ability to like make the kind of movies that he wanted to make. So he's like, well, screw it. I'm just going to make this movie, which was meant to be like a little indie thing. And it ended up being like huge and had like huge distribution and things along those lines. But like the whole idea of it being sort of like an indie affair is how we got Godspeed You Black Emperor, who are notoriously anti-capitalist and like, just kind of curmudgeonly and just flat out don't let their music be used for like movies or TV shows.
Very 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. And like East Hastings is in this. And amazingly, like it's in this, and it's like a key pivotal moment of the movie as well, where he kind of discovers like, oh my God, like where the hell is everybody? What's happening? Which is a very incredible poignant moment. And then he also there's a granddaddy needle drop in there as well. One of the only other things from Modesto other than me and George Lucas. And in addition to that, like he had some Godspeed You Black Emperor sound-alike music, which is hilarious in and of itself because that composer also they did not give like when there was a sequel that Danny Boyle didn't even do. Godspeed did not get their permission to have the music used for that, but the sound-alike music is, and then was used for like 7 to 20 other movies because it's like, oh, that's cool, creepy music, but it's meant to sound like Godspeed You Black Emperor. And that's what's so funny. It was meant to be like, close enough to avoid litigation. And it started the sound-alike trend that like we're lousy with now, and it all was like with this movie. I mean, there's other examples, but this is one of the more egregious ones.
So this is I found this clip of them talking about how they got London emptied for that scene.
Oh, that's awesome because I actually had not heard this. That's fucking cool.
So this is they made some cop friends, which is kind of funny. In London, which they're a little bit more relaxed.
Bobbies.
Yeah, than they are in the US. But this is the story about it.
All cops are Barbies.
The film shows a post-apocalyptic landscape created in the aftermath of the epidemic. But creating a completely deserted vision of London was no easy task.
We never would have shot that with film. The police were quite happy. Sisters and assist doing it because we could do it quickly. We could be ready to shoot in literally minutes.
Walking around deserted London was a big buzz.
It was action and you're in it. And there was nothing there. And once you get into that space in your head, it was just fantastic,
What we tried to do was try and find kind of iconic images that, again, did the work of a huge, huge budget,
When you see the whole of Westminster Bridge and the embankment all closed for you, and the traffic stop and you can't hear anything. It's pretty exciting.
The triumph of actually managing to make that look deserted, I think, is quite, it's incredible.
One of the problems with emptying London now is that, like, I think probably before dance music, you could have probably done it, but now because of dance culture, of course, which has opened clubs, people are piling out of the clubs at dawn, and they overlap with all the kind of people arriving to clean the offices.
The filming also required an entire section of the M1 to be closed.
I think they only gave us 2 or 3 goes at it. So you don't have very much time, and so you're just under a great deal of pressure to kind of get this right.
There was like windows where you have 3 or 4 minutes to get the shot where the traffic's held down the road. So it was brilliant, but it was a weird experience again to see a motorway of that size just empty.
That was unbelievable. I thought that was quite chilling, actually, that set with the motorway blocked off and a big sign for Manchester and desolation.
Must be Manchester.
The whole of Manchester, the whole city.
When you do it for real, things happen, actors are different, and it changes everything because suddenly it's there for the actors. They don't have to imagine that the traffic will be removed or that the dinosaur will be there. It actually is there for them.
Yeah, man. Practical effects too. Hell
yes.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, and I like the story of it's got to be crazy to feel the entire stretch of highway just closed for you, and so you could shoot this one scene, and it must be the most frantic fucking feeling in the world to be no, we have to get this done because this traffic is probably backed up as hell behind us.
And they were able to do it on sunny days in England, which is also amazing.
Well, it was 4 a.m. apparently, so.
Yeah, which is when the sun comes out at 4 a.m. Then the clouds come in at 9.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. One of the, I think I'm trying to remember one of the early bits about talking about crossovers that were later used by Walking Dead, but when what was her name? Nicole, or the lead actress was she was talking about how other people just slow you down, which is a full on thing that would it's an interesting I think that was a big Walking Dead thing too, and it's kind of a thing where even because I can remember what was it
Michonne? Is it? I think there's the swords. Is that?
I think that's part of that's part of one of it, but it's kind of a thing where I think many people included, because I can remember, I think even Jason Pargin on the old Cracked podcast pointed out how much horseshit that was. It's kind of thing, it's kind of a thing of, it is a very brainwashed, rugged individualist idea that, oh no, I'm going to be surprised the fact that, no, it's not we're gonna find the one people who have any sort of medical or pharmacy skills and protect them at all costs because they're the ones who can keep everybody not dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the neoliberalism idea, right? All collective institutions, all collective reliance on each other has been at least aesthetically drained from society itself. There was a really funny part of this clip where he talks about the modern malaise, and it's a phrase that I used for the Shaun of the Dead intro that we just did, and I was like, I would just finish reading Reaganland and use that, and then all of a sudden I hear him talking about that in the intro for this.
Sounds like there's some infected at the door.
that were the upstairs neighbors, and I have no idea what the hell's going on up there. So hopefully they're okay.
Do they seem excessively angry?
It's a
Rage Virus joke. It's a Rage Virus joke.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Okay.
Or were they at all bitey?
Yeah. Do they have red eyes? Anyway,
it's Rage. No, one thing I did not remember. Talk about there's a lot of 90s holdovers in this film. Well, I mean, it was written then and shot in 01, but the fact that eco-terrorists are the villains who come in and kick everything off.
Isn't that was such a trope, especially in the 90s, where and they can't do that now because people are yeah, they're right, they shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. And the thing is, I guess this would have been, I think when I remember, there were raids on makeup testing labs, because I can remember it was an entire Burke breathed, put in or breath. I don't remember how you could pronounce his name, but that was an entire like plot in the later years of Bloom County, where Opus and Bill the Cat go into they save Opus's mom, who's being held being tested at a Mary Kay cosmetics factory. And as their jokes, and they're breaking everybody out, and as they say, oh no, even their Uzis are pink. So
it didn't make the scientists look good either. That were like literally torturing these chimpanzees. Like there was the head of the chimpanzee that they had taken off. I mean, you assume one chimpanzee's taking it from another one, but it's not like this. You get the feeling like, wow, scientists are good and the eco terrorists are bad. It's just
scientists are bad and they created rat monkeys.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and it's this goes back to like, sorry to interrupt, Jeremy, but it's like the Jeff Goldblum Jurassic Park thing, right?
Yeah.
Like with the whole like you're too busy trying to figure out if you could and to figure out if you should. And that I mean, and it used to be like a trope, but now it's like you look at these like, oh look, we made this robot operate on human flesh. It's great. Like what? Why are you doing that? Stop.
Well,
Stop doing that.
There was an experiment that they had. They made a woolly mammoth the same way that they're talking about making a woolly mammoth the same way that they're making the genome in Jurassic Park. And it was like, you guys not watch that movie? Like you stole the science from it, but like you're not like taking the moral of the movie that you guys are literally copying.
But humans and woolly mammoths lived at the same time, so it's okay.
Yeah,
this is true. They were still. They were still here and there. But I think one of the other, well, not just that, but yeah, I mean, this is one of the things, because at one point we should go through and just kind of like, I mean, how long, if we did a segment just talking about what this film like riffs on, like I think I was only getting maybe less than 60% of the references, because I mean the film opens, I mean not only is there a head fake, like there's a kind of an annoying wink of like showing footage of like urban strife and whatnot, but there's a there's a deliberate head fake. I mean, they're doing the Ludovico technique on a chimpanzee.
Right. Yeah,
that was a bit.
Because it's so the idea is that's how the rage virus develops, right? It's just like from like this overall, like this poor monkey is just tormented until like every piece of his brain is just manufacturing rage, and that's how like they like kind of create this virus, which is not really how viruses work, but it's an interesting narrative structure, you know.
Well, they go on to talk about Ebola in like a sequel or like the graphic novel or something, where they had the monkeys changed like gene or something within an Ebola virus, which is why they start vomiting blood. I think it's the comic series or something, or the graphic
it was like
novel,
the comic inspired by the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
I think that was one thing I even at the time, because I did see this at the theater too, which is weird because I was never a zombie fan. It was just kind of like this, like supposed to be like this cool English like horror flicks. Like, let's go see this, and it turns out completely redoes the zombie genre.
Well, it wasn't really. And correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't really market it as a zombie movie at all. It was more just like, it's like they just showed like Cillian Murphy, like the streets are empty. Oh man, what's going on? Then he's like someone running towards the camera. Like what was that? That's crazy looking.
And this was a summer release. This came out this was like domestically released in like June of 2003. So I can remember definitely see it, because I can remember hearing about it, and then I think a few months later seeing a poster for this movie called Shaun of the Dead. I'm like, oh, this looks funny. And then
hey, maybe this is 28 days later, but funny.
Yeah. But
I have this clip that's kind of an interesting way to start that part of the conversation, though. This is very 2002 promo from this making of documentary. But this is what I used for the beginning of it, where they start talking about pandemics and like the science behind why they picked like a pandemic to do this movie around. And like to be listening to this in 2022 is like, oh fuck, like
it's different. It's different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But how far from reality, though, is the premise of 28 Days Later? And how protected are we from a new killer pandemic?
We evaluated overall trends in deaths due to infectious diseases. Looked at in this way, infectious diseases haven't gone away. They have increased as a cause of death in recent years after decades of decline.
The threat to us at the moment from infectious diseases is probably as big as it's ever been and getting worse.
The threat of infection to human mortality on a worldwide scale is still very great. We have to anticipate that there will be a major pandemic at some stage. There will be many deaths associated with that.
I remember actually when I was at secondary school and my teacher was saying that, you know, we shouldn't worry about global warming or any of these things. She said you should worry about viruses, and that for some reason has always stayed with me.
Something very interesting happened while we were filming. There were two German scientists who created a totally synthetic polio virus, but they got all the material off the web.
This is the new fear, isn't it? You know, even in weapons of mass destruction, what everybody's really worried about is the anthrax, smallpox, those kind of things.
Infectious diseases are indeed the new paranoia that's striking Western society. It is this fear of invisible threats to you, you know, just something there in the air, waiting to strike.
If you forget about a disease and consider it beaten, then the organism will take the opportunities which you increasingly offer it.
Nothing else has the power to bring a nation to its knees like the consequences of a killer epidemic.
I expect new things to appear over the years, but you can't predict when and where.
I don't think we're ever far from the next pandemic.
Over the last 10 years, an alarmingly high number of national crises have been a direct consequence of infectious disease.
There's always been rumblings. I mean, I've always felt a little uneasy in the way things have been going. It's constantly testing what the world can take, you know?
In the case of foot and mouth, it resulted in the slaughter of over 5 million animals. That's more than the entire human population of Liverpool.
We saw in the foot and mouth epidemic just how quickly things can spread.
More than 127,000 farms.
Foot and mouth epidemic is what I call this show.
Yay!
It put the greatest strain imaginable on the country's animal health services. Eventually, it resulted in the military being drafted in.
So you heard our broadcast?
Yeah, we did.
Hey, just like this show. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I didn't. You know, I didn't need to. There was like 2 more minutes, but I don't need to play the full 5 minutes. It's
All that hits so different now.
Yeah,
but I mean, there was Ebola, there was mad cow, there was the first SARS outbreak. Like those were all in the early 2000s as like a threat. So like we happened to contain all of those until novel coronavirus 2 or whatever came around, and that's when all those predictions did come true. But it is like an idea like what if we weren't able to contain them at that time? Like those could have easily been another serious pandemic.
I'm curious how long before the makers of Pandemic, the board game, put out an updated revision, inspired by real world action. Where at some point, not only do you have people trying to fight the virus, you have people who are trying to spread it.
Yeah, chosen facts edition, exactly.
Anti-vax card. You have pulled this card, and now you are not going to get vaccinated because God doesn't want that. So you got to figure it out.
Well, that's the thing and Derek Varn has pointed out repeatedly, I think this, if nothing else, it's because a lot of people kept saying it, it's a dress rehearsal for climate change. But I think part of one of the things that Derek keeps pointing out is the psychological effect is that the cognitive dissonance is going to kick in to especially with a certain crowd and or a certain elite enough level where the problem will be big enough that at some point it's just going to hit people so hard that they'll just flip it. and they'll just start actively doing stuff wrong in thinking that they're making things better or they're doing self-defense or whatever. But it's going to be
it's eco-fascism, right? Like it's the idea that instead of combating a pandemic or instead of combating climate change, you're going to hoard the stuff for yourself while excluding everybody else. It's it fits very comfortably into like the far right philosophy of how to handle crisis.
Yeah, well, there's that, but it's also, I think, far right stuff. There's there's the purifying aspect, which I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the motivating factor, but I just think there's going to be I mean, we're already seeing it's kind of, well, that's the kicker, is like how much of the current state of either inability to either to face the, I would say it's a hard enough thing it's a hard enough thing to grasp, but they're in the amount of ruling class decadence that as we see right now, they can't even do shit right now to prevent the stuff. Everything is just degraded. It's
well, there was like the Mask of Red Death moment with Obama having his like Martha Vineyard party, like birthday party or something, where he had all the elites come to like his fucking compounds. I don't remember if it was Martha's Vineyard or if it was in like the Virgin Islands, but he like at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, he had all of the
it was
elites.
Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, he had all the elites come and like spend a bunch of time at his thing, and I felt like it was like the Mask of Red Death, the fucking Edgar Allan Poe story.
Or even across the pond, Boris having those, they're having like those like the lockdown curfew, like all the parties that actually I think kind of like gave the other the kind of the conservatives not really up with him kind of an edge to kind of like help push him out.
I mean, you guys don't think that started with those guys though, right?
No,
like that's consistently been happening since there's been a ruling class. You understand that, right? But I mean,
I think it's, you got to remember this is the second, because of these, the seventh fail son of a seventh.
The only difference is it gets reported to TMZ now. That's the only thing real there. But like, I mean,
Boris Johnson having a party at 10 Downing Street. Look who's coming out. Oh, it's drunk Theresa May.
Well, and so something to remember about the time frame of this movie too, though, is there was still belief in institutions to be able to handle a major crisis. This is pre-Katrina.
Yeah.
Right. Katrina happens 3 years later, something along those lines. And that's like when there's this first big shaking of like, wait a minute, like, what is going on? Am I gonna have to drive this water down myself? Like, what are you kidding me right now? Whereas the idea that like all of the institutions could completely fail was still like, oh my God, that is a horror movie, as opposed to like, that's just reality now.
Yeah. And it's gonna get worse and worse. Like there's the conversation about like a lot of people who have bought houses in Florida by like the shoreline or whatever, as the water levels rise, they're like trying to sell off their houses. Yeah, but it's like so
they could just sell their houses if they get flooded.
Cue the H bomber guy clip. So,
or I think Ben Shapiro said something where he was like, "Why don't you just move? Why don't you just move to a different part of Florida?"
Well, that was the clip. It was like, who are they gonna sell their houses to? Ben, Aquaman.
I cannot adequately tell you how much I hate hearing about these people on this show. Let alone that guy who has the worst voice ever. But I think that like it's worth noting as we like work to,
but well, it's just the most spot on like interpretation of the same like kind of eco-fascism idea, where it's just like so much cognitive dissonance from the actual problem that someone's just like, well, just sell your house. Like it doesn't matter whether it's Ben Shapiro who says it or Ron DeSantis or somebody.
Well, it doesn't matter because you bring it up constantly, and you always do the impression and bring up all these right-wing personalities that I refuse to acknowledge exist. But we are working towards climate change. It's not that we're like not doing anything about it. We're working towards climate change, and this is going to continue to be a problem. But this is something that like it really is astounding that what we just is a harsh reality to us was actually the horror or sci-fi of like yesteryear, and it's that's so downhearted. It's like it makes talking about like movies with infected people running around like zombies kind of like seem like light by comparison. But it's something we're actively working towards because culturally, as a mass average, we've decided we're not going to do anything about it. Right? Just like with the pandemic, it doesn't matter if you did everything right. It doesn't matter if you follow the rules the best you could possibly follow the rules. as a societal aggregate average, we decided to do nothing about it. So that's what happens. We did nothing about it.
And the only time
and that's the problem with the commons is there has to be like individual action doesn't matter compared to the commons unless it's something where it spoils the result towards what a cumulative mass action of majority would do.
Well, and the only time that you can really express it within, the confines of popular culture, maybe not like writing in some journal or something, but like in popular culture is something like 2012, like an apocalypse movie that has some kind of implication where it's either like a Mayan prediction or it's, like this huge disaster that happens, unforeseen consequences. It's not like, hey, I mean, Don't Look Up did a good job of it, I guess, where it's like, metaphorically like, oh, this is something that we could stop and we're actively choosing not to, but like unless you have people actively trying to create that kind of story, which you don't very often, the only kind of connection you can really get to it, because we are a whether or not we like to admit it, kind of a theocracy, the only way that you can really
I disagree. It's a theocracy. The only theocracy is towards money and corporate profit.
But I'm saying like a little bit of a theocracy in terms of like predictions and like Christianity, and like it always has to be somehow transferred to like the Book of Revelations within pop culture, or like a Mayan prediction, or like, you know what I mean, like this quasi spiritual or religious.
There is an overabundance of Christianity within American popular culture. If you look at the actual numbers of people that identify as like being very religious, it's actually far fewer. But
it's dropping.
But then it is dropping. But then like think of something like The Exorcist or something along those lines, right? Like great movie, but obviously heavily steeped in Catholicism and religion things. So I think I see what you're saying as far as that goes, but it sucks that like first of all, that movie sucked. 2012, like that was not a good movie.
Well, no, that movie was terrible.
It was terrible. But like, would it have been better if it was just like not like the Mayan prediction thing and just like, oh no, you brought this on yourself because you're terrible. Then it would have been that movie. Was The Day After Tomorrow? Do you guys remember that? Like the climate change movie, which was also terrible. Yeah, I mean,
but
terrible in a different way.
Watch me bring this back. The description that they have on YouTube for 28 Days Later is the scariest movie since The Exorcist. Like that's the
really?
tagline. Yeah.
Hey, facts, man. This is a scary movie. I saw this in the theater. I was like, I was freaked out, especially when like the way that he shoots it, where you just see the people like, the guy get infected, and then that running, and it's like, oh my god, right. Like Jesus fucking Christ.
That's the thing. He's got like. He's Danny Boyle doing running stuff, but shooting it in an extremely Danny Boyle fashion.
Yeah,
and it also screwing around with their digital camera settings so that to make it look weird. Because I think one of his quotes was on the Canon cameras they have. There was a bit of the way like high speed shutters, which had a different effect on a digital camera than it does on an analog.
Yep. And it looks crazy. Nothing looks like it. And that's the thing. It's like nothing like it was a very specific time in filmmaking that you could do that and would look crazy. Unique.
I have a clip of they're talking about they're speaking of a theocracy, it's the theocracy of digital filmmaking here, but they're very excited that they got to shoot this on digital film.
Now it's like the theocracy of CGI. But anyway,
he seems not to like it though. I like that about him.
Yeah, Danny Boyle. He's made a lot of like mediocre movies, but practical effects all the way for that guy.
Wonderful relationship with my daughter, and we're hiding out in the survival mode, in a high-rise flat. He was just a very beautifully written character.
I play a character called Major Henry West, who's a senior officer in the British Army. He and his 8 soldiers are uninfected. But basically what he's done is he's taken over a stately pile, a mansion, and he's made it impregnable.
High perimeter wall, which helps. And we've been lacing the ground with tripwires and landmines. You wouldn't want to mow the lawn, but if they get in, we hear them.
She doesn't trust the army saying that they have the answer to infection, and she knows that there actually is no answer to infection.
He represents the head, and Jim represents the heart, and ultimately there's conflict between the two.
I want to give you a chance.
To create a more urban feel to the images, the filmmakers chose digital video over film.
I think it it's beautiful for urban work. It has a grittiness about it that's magnificent for your city movie, really. This is the way we record our lives. We are surrounded in this city by cameras. They're everywhere, and they're all these DV cameras, all types of them, and they're recording our every motion all the time.
It definitely suits the story, suits the British story, particularly that sort of slightly rough edge.
I think when you want something like this to feel really real, you know, it's an appropriate medium to use.
Hello? A few occasions, you know, you might just go, phew, and there's a camera there, so you have to be aware of it all the time, you know. But it's great because you can get so many different perspectives and you can do things that you can't do with big 35mm cameras.
You can't just sort of wait for your single or for your close-up shot or whatever. You're always mindful there's at least 2 cameras on the go.
Which you've got to be aware of as an actor, because you can sometimes think it's a wide and there's one stuck in there that is covering you very close.
The filming the TV while somebody talks is like, I forgot that I feel like the 2000s was lousy with that, and the late 90s, where it's like somebody talking, but it's like filming the TV.
Yeah, that's an MTV thing. That is definitely
it's totally Natural Born Killers, all that stuff. Yeah.
MTV News, Real World. Yeah, that's
Hackers.
all,
where they did weird
Hackers.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
They did a funny. I feel like they were kind of almost parodying that in some ways when we watched the read through of Shaun of the Dead, and they were in front of the TV doing the.
Ooh, yeah, like the feedback, yeah. But addressing the letter of the clip, which is super interesting, it is kind of cool to see. Yeah, I mean, digital filmmaking was still new, like, and the idea that you could just shoot and like you don't have to like change reels, you don't have to like change film stock, you know, you can just shoot.
Because you don't have to look like Fritz Lang in when we watch Contempt, and he has the giant camera at the end of it, and he's going through on the tracking thing like this.
Yeah, because you want to watch like that your film stock's very similar. You know, if when you change reels or whatnot, that's not the same. You know, it's like the same brand or whatever. And I mean, like I think the movie looks like shit, but also at the same time it works because like it's artfully done. It's
similar to like Blair Witch Project in that way.
Yeah,
right? Like,
actually, that's a fantastic example.
Yeah,
because that's first of all, very much of its time too, and it's not designed to look like it's like Suspiria or something. It's
Who's the Caboose?
Yeah.
I've never actually seen that. I should see that one of these.
It's worth watching. Is it the most brilliant thing you've ever seen? No,
I was about to give you props, and then you had to go. You had to do
I want to say
how to do it.
More than likely, I don't want to compare it to like what Hits was, but I don't know. Anyway,
I enjoyed it. I mean, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, I think Blair Witch Project is another example of something that was a type of filmmaking that was sort of brought to the forefront that also had a bunch of imitators as well. And that, like, suddenly everybody was using shaky cam footage. I was like, oh my God, please stop. I'm getting a headache.
I mean, like, it's one thing when Paul Greengrass does it in like Bourne, where he actually like lays out the space. And that's one of the things that like you can kind of cheat a little bit with space.
Right.
But like the thing is though, is if you're going to watch something with shaky cam, you need to understand the space, and this movie understands that quite well because there is a very it is very artfully shot.
I mean the one shot that I think stands out, and we watched the clip where they were talking about clearing out the highway, but as they're going into Manchester and you don't see the city burning yet, but you see them reacting to the city burning, and then there's like that beautiful above. I don't think it was that it was drones that they could use to do that with yet, but they have like the above.
This was years before.
It's probably like
they have like the they have the shot from above and of the car going through, and then but it cuts off right before you see the burning city, and then it slowly moves up to the burning city. I feel like that shot is particularly beautiful on this, and uses that maybe not. It doesn't use necessarily like the same digital filmmaking techniques, but like it does use the space very well, I think.
Real quick, one of the things about like just to put a little add on to the little point about innovative filmmaking techniques, but also their many copycats. I think the kicker about Blair Witch is that horror was always the genre that a lot of people get into because it's the easiest to make. correction, it's the cheapest to make, shall we say, of genre films. You know,
and people will make the most excuses for it.
right? You know, that too. Well, that's, I mean, hey, shit. Was it Dashiell Hammett was complaining about fans and lowered fans low, over, what fans of a genre will tolerate in their given genre, because he was complaining about this back in the 30s about talking about how like the average novel, the mediocre average novel is not published, but the average detective novel is. And this is like stuff but the kicker I wanted to bring up about like people, people kind of glamming on to like a new thing is that Blair Witch showed, or at least reminded people of, hey, here is a way you can do, this found footage stuff that they'd come around with in the 70s and stuff. And you can do that, and you can make your movie even cheaper, and then come the onrush,
and have that baked into the concept of the movie. People forget about that. People forget that like it was. So like, is this for real? Because it was just at that moment where like you couldn't debunk it with like 3 seconds on Twitter.
Although I will say, I was a university student at the time, and I did watch the first trailer for that in the computing lab.
Where they had like the website, and you go to the website to like.
Oh no, it wasn't even that. No, it was on a QuickTime window on a university Mac in the aerospace engineering building in Ann Arbor, so nice and brightly lit. So it was an interesting experience. But because also the Paul Greengrass shaky cam thing, in terms of a very particular, very arch style of filmmaking that people tried to grab on later and did badly. Watch the opening car chase of, I believe it is, what was the Daniel Craig Bond film that followed up on Casino Royale? It was the second.
Yeah. Oh shit! It was on the tip of my tongue
Skyfall?
too.
Was it Skyfall?
No, not Skyfall.
Oh no! Way before that. This is
the second one. Yeah,
it's the second one, because there's a car chase that happens in the beginning of it that is completely incoherent, where you can the camera whips around and they cut so fast.
And it's supposed to be like the same day as the Casino Royale. But then like he's wearing a completely different outfit, which is weird.
Yeah, but also, just in terms of just trying to communicate like what is happening, it doesn't work as like a Bond car chase or even a Bond car chase, because it's like you can't track what's going on.
Because that movie had so many problems because of the writer's strike, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, at one point, we'll say that they at least it had a cool parkour scene in it. That was neat.
Talking about Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace. Yeah, there we go.
Another good example, Children of Men, one of my favorite movies. The action scene like near the end, which is basically shortcut to PTSD. Very much unique and modern filmmaking style. That it was, there's a lot to love in that movie, and we got to discuss a few of it when we actually covered it.
Yes. That was actually
only a few though.
And you got that sense of space too, like where everything's coming from. Yeah, because they were doing it from one camera.
Yeah, and to the point that, one of the most notable things about it is like when there's like blood that gets spattered on the camera, and it's such an incredible moment that I kept it in, and it's one of my favorites, and it's interesting that like people were being so inventive about the technology then, and then immediately started taking it for granted.
Yeah,
and just making really long ass movies.
Yeah,
that's that's part of the downfall of. That's kind of the. That's the story of advanced technology and creativity.
Yeah.
Anyway, is like it always like you immediately. It's like once you immediately establish it, then it is very, very, very easy to if you have enough fun. The studio can throw up enough capital for you to buy all the new toys to do it. It's pretty easy to grab it.
Well, it's also a lot of young directors probably trying to make their name doing something, and it's like they're not going to be given like a full-fledged budget at the beginning of it. So the easiest thing you can possibly do is kind of remake or create some kind of horror sequel or like rip off or something. And it feels like that's a genre that like people don't really get that upset about other people ripping off the ideas that they come up with.
Well, so go ahead. Yep.
No, I was just gonna say, counterpoint. James Bond III. He directed that fantastic movie, which I can't think of the name of off the top of my head, but it's about vampires in the hood in the early '90s. And he made this movie. It got fantastic reviews. All the studios wanted him to do horror movie sequels, and he's like, "No, I did a horror movie. I want to do something else," and couldn't because he started off doing a genre piece.
Which is actually, and the opposite is now where, young promising filmmakers who don't do genre pieces, but who get snatched up. And then this is all, and I think the Bond franchise, the Broccoli family kind of like led the way on this, but they snatch up, young promising filmmakers who had maybe a hit or two on the indie side and drag them into the big franchise machinery, where all of a sudden you go from like a little indie thing to having some huge sprawling, big blockbuster attempts where I think, whereas one of my film TAs would say, it's a deliberate attempt to kind of overwhelm the director, so they have to rely on the producers, and they wound up like the producers are the ones pretty much steering the ship, and now you have now you have like directors who are kind of like almost like they get trapped into the maybe not always Disney Marvel, but that happens a lot.
Josh Trank happened. That happened to him with Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Or Fan Four Stick.
Well, and then sometimes, what's his name? Was it Colin? Who's the Colin who did the Jurassic Park movies? Who also did he started out by doing the time travel movie with Aubrey Plaza.
That's good.
Colin Trevorrow, I think it's Well, that's the cool thing. Well, that's the thing is like he does that. They grab him, and then they're going to have him do. He's going to do Rise of Skywalker, but he puts out. What I can't remember what the name of that the weird drama they puts out that everybody has like a real bad reaction to, so they kind of kick him off the movie, and they had to like toss him back to J.B. Abrams, and then he winds up with Jurassic World and like just go and winds up like it becomes a hit, and he can now start making blank check movies. So
that's kind of what they did with Taika Waititi, right? Like they had him do the Marvel Thor Ragnarok, and as like after doing like indie comedy, they had him do that, and now he's kind of
he did indie dramas too, but yes,
but now they have him kind of hooked into doing multiple Marvel films, which isn't bad, but like it is kind of moving him up from like a very like an indie position to having to restructure an entire superhero franchise in some way, because that movie it was getting pretty stale, I think, the Marvel movies, and then he kind of breathed fire into it really.
But that also allowed him to do things like Reservation Dogs, which is a fantastic show. We've talked about extensively on this.
Yeah, I think this topic. Well, hold on. This topic has like morphed 3 times since I've been trying to jump in, and it moved to something I don't want to talk about even a little bit from something I want to talk about a lot, which is to go back to say that like post Trainspotting, Boyle was having a hard time with Hollywood. Like getting stuff made. He had like a Life Less Ordinary after that, and he was just getting really frustrated with it.
Fine.
It's fine. It's okay. It's like whatever. It does no harm, right? But like he was basically super sick of having to deal with like the fact that like he had this success, but having to like deal with all these other opinions with people, art by committee, et cetera, et cetera. And so 28 Days Later was a reaction to that. It's very funny. The movie after this is Millions, which is like the treacly Christmas movie. Which is, it's fine. It's pretty different though. But then Sunshine, like after that, right? So it's like
with Cillian Murphy,
exactly. And then after that, Slumdog Millionaire, that's a huge hit, everything like that. But I think it's so amazing that like you can tell that a lot of the innovation that 28 Days Later has, whether it's cinematography, whether it's shot composition, editing, it's just trying to use the tools to make something exciting and cool, and like remember why I like doing film in the first place. Remember, this was going to be an indie film. that's how they got Godspeed on board, and then like gradually I was like, oh, this is good. Oh no, this is good, and it can make money, and it ended up kind of like being like a pastiche of both those worlds. But I think that, and I'm bringing this up because we've talked a lot about, whether it's Dead Alive, and Peter Jackson getting the money from the government to do that, or whether it's Night of the Living Dead, where they borrowing the car to just whatever means necessary to make it and use it as an avenue for telling stories and making filmmaking. And how it's fascinating that so many of these touchstone films of the genre that we've covered all this month, a lot of them are guilty of that, which is to say that guilty of innovation. Now granted, that's usually what we do. We want to talk about the ones that are interesting, right? But it is astounding how many movies in the zombie pantheon, if you will, whether the infected count as zombies or not is an entirely different conversation. Go to Reddit to fucking discuss that. I don't want to hear about it. But it's innovation after innovation after innovation. It's usually because of frustration with a system, lack of budget. There's certain frustrations that are inbuilt with it, but it's very consistent.
And
I think that's amazing.
Alex Garland because he was a writer first, not a
completely unknown Alex Garland. This is years before Ex Machina or Annihilation. Devs is brilliant. He wrote Devs too. I think Men is interesting.
Yeah, because he was a novelist before, right?
Yeah. But this is what the kind of this brought him to Hollywood, for better or for worse.
Yeah, he wrote The Beach, and that's what his novel The Beach is what inspired.
The Beach is how they hooked up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So he was like, I really like this guy's novel, and I think he could do a really good job with this. The ironic point is that Alex Garland actually is a huge zombie film fan. He's watched all of them before making this. And
have you guys ever seen The Beach? That's the one that's after Life is Ordinary.
That's the one where the beach makes you old, right? Yeah, I saw that.
No, that's
yeah.
That's
Leonardo DiCaprio.
And then they play Blue Monday, and anyway.
Tilda Swinton's in it. I think I saw it. I didn't make a huge impression, but
I can't remember if I've seen it or not. To be honest with you.
Well, it came out of that time period. Let's see. It's 2000, right? Yeah. So it's that sort of late 90s malaise. It was after Life Less Ordinary. It was after Trainspotting. Well before this.
He was trying to do something big Hollywood, but something he wanted to do because he loved the book. And the movie's okay, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's mostly harmless, right? But anyway, but I think it's cool that, because first of all, I think again, I got to point out the fact that this is incredibly influential for the zombie movie pantheon, and we can include, because it always comes up, anything after 2000 anyway. We can include Walking Dead.
So what I'm trying to say about this is that he was a huge fan. Danny Boyle was not, and hadn't seen really any
really. Oh wow, okay.
Movie. So when he decided to make fast zombies for this, he was like, it would be terrifying to have fast zombies in this as their mode of movement or whatever. And Alex Garland was like, well, they don't really do that. It's zombies. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want this.
Yeah, but why not?
Terrifying to just have the guy kind of lumbering around and that. There's nothing really scary about that anymore, is there? So it's his kind of lack of interest in creating.
I love that because it was an accidental innovation, right? Because they did exist, and you can asterisk for Return of the Living Dead, sure, but when played as a straight horror film, it's terrifying.
And then World War Z obviously takes this exact kind of zombie and transfers it.
That's to the nth level, more so than even the actual sequel of this, which I will not speak of. Thank you.
I never actually saw the film version of World War Z. Did any of you listen to Max Brooks's audiobook version of it?
No, I've just seen the movie.
I'm familiar with it, but I haven't read it.
I
have spoiled it.
Because he has said that he deliberately oversaw the audio production and casted it too. Everybody, Rob Reiner, he got all his dad's friends in, Rob Reiner's one of the voices in it. Jürgen Prochnow is in it. God, who else is in it? Mark Hamill is in it. There's a bunch of great voices in it. But he pretty much said that because he was growing up, I think he referred to it maybe having had kind of a learning disability of certain things, but his parents, Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft, were really supportive, and they got him a lot of audiobooks. So he was a real big fan of audiobooks as a medium, proto podcasting. And so, but to him, the audio version, the kind of proper Hollywood actor cast audio version was his film version of it. And he was kind of like, yeah, I made my film version of it. You know what? You know, it's like they can do whatever they want to do with the actual movie. So.
Yeah, well, but I don't know the movie version of it. Down to like
it.
even the movements of the actual like when they turn right, like because they have the 12 seconds. Like even those movements are kind of exactly the same idea, I think, as 28 Days Later, but of course with being zombies in this case and not. And they also take the 10 to 20 second window or whatever and turn it into a 12-second window, which they're doing. I mean that part's pretty creepy, but
the Snyder movie does that too. That they call Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, it's actually it's like genre. I think genre has a way of doing this in the way that dramas don't. Is in genre films, once you've established something in one film, you can then. Science fiction, I think, did this more than anything.
You just carry it forward.
Yeah, it's like you no longer have Star Wars did not have to refer to faster than light travel or shields or even proton torpedoes. They could just mention it because Star Trek had already established the I mean it aside from a lot of shields show up in Asimov stories in the 40s. So
but since it's been popularized, it's considered canonical, and you don't need to explain it every single time.
Yeah, it's like it's like we know how people know how a spaceship works. You don't have to explain the concept of like a blaster rifle, that kind of thing. It's like once it gets established once it gets established in a certain enough thing, it's like okay, it just becomes a thing. You can refer to it. Barf. Not in here, you. This is a Mercedes. So.
Sometimes the comment section is like so on point, and I feel like it's just like another person on the show, and sometimes it's just Mr. Pink Barf.
Yeah. Well, no, Stevie said Reservoir Mogs.
No, I saw the thread, but like apropos of nothing, Jeremy's trying to make a point in Mr. Pink Barf. There you
go. I think the other kicker is one of the things that. Rewatching the film last night that I remember this part of, the entire like how the film broke down, but it never occurred to me how much of the third act of the film is it's first blood. It's entirely like first blood of him.
Yes.
Like you have the guy beaten up by rogue not rogue, but members of the military harassing this really muscled white dude with no shirt on running through the rainy forest who goes nuts and all of a sudden he goes predator and starts icing people one by one.
Well, and Chris Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor, in a great heel role here, like as like. At first, like, oh, this is the guy who's like maintaining continuity of like services and order and civilization. It's like, oh no, he's just literally trying to keep his soldiers appeased, and he's going to do so in the most misogynistic way possible by essentially conscripting any woman that comes in the door as like a tool of pleasure. Cool.
So the weird reason he has for doing. I'm not weird, but like to keep up the morale of like literally finding the one guy that they have dressed up as a woman already. That's cooking the food that they're just relentlessly shitting on. To have like he finds him with a gun in his mouth. I mean, if you believe his story, at least
his what makes him a good character is that the rationale for taking those actions makes sense. They're logical. It's just that it's taken to such incredible extreme that if you have the remotest bit of empathy, it's like, well, hold on a second, nobody signed up for that. Like you can't just conscript people in because you've got guns. Because
he's kind of I mean, I don't mean this in like he's crazy kind of way, but like this kind of it's kind of being a psychopath, right? Like he sees people killing people. He doesn't find that to be good or bad. He's just like, that is what it is. And then in the same way, conscripting a woman into being forced to have sex with his regiment or whatever, it's not in his mind a good or bad thing. The violence is not a good or bad thing. The violence just is. And it feels like that's like psychopathy, I guess, as a thing. In the same way,
he even goes to Jim and tries to be like, "Hey, I got nothing against you. Welcome to like what is like? No, I've got something majorly against you. You can't do this."
The same way that he chains up Mailer or whatever, and he starts saying like, "Oh well, he can't farm, he can't, we can't utilize him, he can't cook. Like there's nothing he can do." He's thinking about this stuff not in terms of humanity. He's thinking about it in terms of completely, what can be utilized. And what
utility.
Can't.
It's utility.
Reproduction of society. Yeah.
Which Yeah, that I mean that like look, I'm like the idea of like, okay, we keep him chained up to see how long it takes before like they finally like is not a threat anymore. That's actually smart military tactics, frankly. But it's obviously horrifying and like subhuman to do so. But like from a tactical standpoint, it's probably a good idea.
So this is a clip I have about the military training that they actually underwent for this movie.
Also, Christopher Eccleston blonde in this. That's
yes.
I think it's the one time I've ever seen him blonde.
So this is about the actual, because they had them undergo like a short military training like thing to actually be able to play soldiers. So I thought that this was kind of interesting. Which Chris Eccleston is the one that's like most in this clip, and he's explaining like he's very squeamish about guns, which is kind of funny. He's like, not my thing.
What an English thing too.
The film also required a large team of makeup artists to create the infected look.
We've been experiencing a lot of gore at the moment.
A lot of gore.
Lots of buckets of fake blood and
gallons of spewy bile and edible vomit. And all sorts of different variations on blood. But you become immune to it. I mean, you'll be sitting down having your lunch, head to foot, and
it's a bit surreal. You're sitting there and then there's just like an infected person walking past or eating when they're like sitting next to you and whatever.
Yeah, and it is very gruesome. Very gruesome.
I still got a bit of him in my teeth. Look,
Danny, he really likes all that stuff, doesn't he? Because he's behind the monitor, And I thought, oh yeah, it's sort of a recurring thing with Danny, this sort of ultra violence.
There's two kind of effects in the film, really, to try and create a kind of both a plausible world, i.e., a post-apocalyptic plausible world, and also an atmospheric world that has a strange atmosphere about it.
The one that really got me was the rain, because rain is really makes things so difficult. Because by the time you got the rain right and the light right and the angle so you could see the rain, and then trying to do the shot, that was very difficult.
We use the digital effects more to try and create an atmosphere, particular use of colours in the film. Because you're in a digital medium anyway, it's very responsive. You can actually play with the visual impact of the film in different ways. There's a freedom to do that.
Essential for the action sequences was a high level of fitness, and some of the cast endured military training.
We had a 2-3 day boot camp where we did military exercises.
it was an experience to tell you that, to tell you that much. It was. I'm used to staying indoors overnight and stuff like that. That didn't really work out.
It was hard stuff, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I stuck it out because I think it's all showing on screen.
And they're putting us right on the edge. With the stuff that you're doing.
There's a rule in the army, but forces generally a leap and a bound. You should never be more than a leap and a bound away from your own personal weapon. And after 2 days, they're starting to get it, and you can see them getting nervous when they're a little bit further away from their own weapon.
I used both the machine gun and then a mounted machine gun, which is I find pretty frightening, to be honest. I didn't particularly get a buzz out of it. It's not something that I enjoyed, but I can see why a certain sort of man may feel more potent.
And then we had 2 days actually here on location, teaching them basic infantry skills, as well as the specific tasks that they all need to carry out in each individual scene.
Learned a little bit how to move like a soldier, and obviously how to think like a soldier.
Actors learn a lot more quickly than soldiers do, which is a great relief. Otherwise, we would have had to be here for 6 months before we did this.
I do, I use my imagination a lot of the time. That's what my job's about.
Nice.
Soma got so
what a silly man in some ways. He's like
so much real world 90s MTV news.
So it's so blatant. Now that you said MTV, I'm like, yeah, it's way MTV. By the way, you guys were talking about James Bond earlier. I forgot Naomi Harris, who's the female lead in this, is Moneypenny in this most recent.
Yes.
Because I was like, what else has she been at? I feel like the other stuff I've seen her in. I was like, oh yeah,
she's been in a crazy amount of stuff.
She's been in all kinds of stuff. Yeah, she did Moonlight and stuff, but Yeah.
Oh, not, but it's also talk about like the just the black hole of gravity that American cape shit is to drag people in. Eccleston was in a Thor movie as well as Cillian Murphy was. First time I remember, I see. I didn't connect him to this, but when because he's the Scarecrow in Batman
the
Begins.
Batman, the first.
He's in all 3 of the Nolan Batman movies.
He's a small.
I was trying to remember what
You're right, he is, but in the first, I just remember because of the first one because he's got that hair, but he also has on like those very right when like glasses styles went from like black plastic to like clear and like narrow, and but he's this weird like baby faced, almost like he looks like a Thunderbird because he's like this like so plastic, almost like marionette like with like a fake plastic skin and like see through and like clear plastic frames. Anyway,
I was trying to remember what I knew Naomi Harris from, and one of the things from a really long time ago is she was in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies as where she had the teeth and the dreads or whatever. She was
I got those movies are so like people love to talk about how like instantly forgettable Marvel movies are. That's what all those movies are for me. Those Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like I can't
Maybe
remember
the first one's worth talking about, like watching again.
I know I've seen them all. I couldn't tell you a single thing about any of them.
No, except for the first one. The first one.
They're pirates and they're in the Caribbean.
Yeah, Johnny Depp's running around and acting like
Keith Richards.
Keith Richards. Yeah,
that's it. That's the thing is like he's so much Keith Richards that when Keith Richards did his own audio book, they had Johnny Depp read/perform it.
And I think Keith Richards actually is in one of the Pirates movies.
Yeah, he's his dad. He's Jack's dad. And he comes back as his dad, and he's.
See, I forgot that. I've seen whatever movie that was. I've seen it, and I forgot.
Yeah,
I was the right age for the first one when it came out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a movie that like you could watch. It's PG-13, and like I don't know. It was just. So I remember that movie for that, but
you poor sod. You had you been a PG-13 film in the 80s, you'd at least be able to see boobs.
Yeah,
but, after the internet took care of that.
You just get to see now. You just get to see guys going like Johnny Depp did throughout. For 4 entire features. Although I only did see the first one. I did kind of want to see like one of the later ones because I guess they had Chow Yun-fat in it. And I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to have him in this.
I saw that movie. I can't remember anything about it.
Can't remember anything about it. Like,
here's the thing: if Chow Yun-fat is speaking English in the film, you know it's not going to be good.
He does sing the Lionel Richie song a little bit in Hard Boiled, which when I remember for years after I'd seen Hard Boiled, had no idea what the hell song they were trying to perform because all of the it's Lionel Richie's Hello. And that's one of the two things that I just want to mention was one, we saw a shot of the kind of 9/11 memorial wall, which again they were filming when 9/11 happened, and apparently I guess they got a lot of shit from that, and they're like, no, we got this was we saw this because the same thing happened after a Chinese earthquake where the same thing and which was kind of interesting, funny how that all turned out. And I think the other thing was there's a lot of about like 90s critiques of consumer culture, the kind of post Dawn of the Dead of like people like hoarding aspects of the previous life, like when the military is at the manor and you just see them like just stockpiles of like consumer electronics in the background still in the box that they cannot use because they don't have power. And it's never really remarked upon, but it's just kind of like it's nice set dressing.
It's also funny that they hole up in a manor. They don't hole up in the barracks or like something like that, right? Like they find themselves like a nice English manor to hole up in.
With like on like an acreage of land that they can landmine the area around it, which is actually pretty smart if you got access to that kind of stuff, frankly. And you're that unfriendly. I think the major Henry West character, Chris Eccleston, is a good character, and I think he's the best heavy that they could have had for this, because it is kind of strange how it's almost 2 movies. There's like pre-military part and the post-military part. And Jeremy, I think, is very astute that it's very Rambo First Blood. Like once like Jim's like running around and he's got like, you know, blood on his face and he's like smoking.
Yeah, he goes go on like full guerrilla, you know, guerrilla fighter, predator, but also and you got just. That's the thing we mentioned before about how much this film refs from Day of the Triffids to Dawn of the Dead to First Blood, but also a shit ton of Day of the Dead.
I can't hear about First Blood without thinking of the It's Always Sunny episode where they kind of remake it with Cricket or whatever, and fucking Danny DeVito's like, he drew First Blood, and he's like, is that Rambo? I think you're confusing your life with Rambo's life again. And he's like, no, it happened to me.
Oh, kitty. Brendan Gleeson's great in this too. Like I only mentioned him like with his death scene, but he's a great actor. In Bruges is amazing.
Yes.
He's really great in the Stephen King show. Christ, I can't remember what it's called, but he's really great in that.
Like
yeah, he's been in all kinds of stuff. Like he's like, what I like is that he's the right age to be like, you know, he's a good dad, but like, you know, it's not like weird or anything along those lines. And it's just like, you don't see lots of those kinds of characters in these kinds of movies, in zombie movies, or where it's just like, no, he's just a good dad. Yeah, like, he's a good dude, but he's just a good dad. It's not
he's a good dad, but you can also tell that he has like a drinking problem and like a little bit of a problem with, you know, rage, which ironically, of course.
Yeah, which is very ironic considering this rage virus. But like, I think
if only they had cured that somehow.
But his depiction as like a human, right? A human in its totality, it's really good, and it makes it all the more like, no, not that guy. Like when he goes, he's like, no, it's not. I mean, not that there would be any good choices at that point.
The shopping cart scene, we haven't talked about that. I really like when they're in the supermarket and they're all kind of running around, and she's like, if I never see another chocolate bar again, and then immediately goes for the fucking chocolate bar. Yeah. Like, oh, this one's oranges in it.
No, it's a chocolate orange. Have you ever had a chocolate orange?
Yeah.
Chocolate orange.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the I think the Granddaddy song is playing to that, which is a great usage of that song.
The also the one thing I realized last night was kind of a nice little quirk of the shot of them, you know, driving away with the 4 carts, leaving there. But at some point, because the carts move, they're not anchored, so they start rolling. It looks like the carts are turning to, much like how the end of Wicker Man has the kind of an accidental like movement with during the fire sequence at the very last shot. The carts kind of move, and it looks like the carts are turning to watch them go.
Well, I didn't even notice that. That's
yeah. I just thought it was a really nice touch. Plus,
it's got big Omega Man vibes.
Those carts are so lonely.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's as humans are like. But it's got big, you know, and again, just gonna invoke I Am Legend again. It's got Omega Man vibes, right? And like sort of and all the various iterations of it pull from different parts of it, and some of it's better than others, but like the loneliness of it being just like, no, there's no one around. Like I can just drive my car into this like shop window and who gives a shit.
Is that what you guys wanted to start Apocalypse Month with? Omega Man? That could be interesting as like an immediate corollary between this season and
I'm not against it. I mean, I just to be explicitly clear, Last Man on Earth, Omega Man, and I Am Legend, none of those 3 are good movies. I think Omega Man is the best of the bunch of them, but like
because it's fun.
Yeah, but it's
he fights a giant scorpion. It's great.
Yeah, that's also and the other kick.
But compared to the book, it ain't shit. None of them are shit.
No, remember, to touch back earlier, talk about remakes, but also how this film was seminal in many ways. The remake of I Am Legend, to my recall, is effectively the vampires are effectively they shoot them as if they are fast zombies.
That is a good point, because so again in the Will Smith I Am Legend, another missed opportunity. They got a couple things of it right, but it's just they blew it big time with it. But they made them more like like the whole thing with I Am Legend. The thing that makes it interesting is that they're intelligent. And they've maintained memories of their humanity, and they're trying to like trick him, and they're trying to like get him to like so they can get him out of the picture, because they become the dominant paradigm of society. And then the big reveal is that like, oh no, he's the monster. The human is the monster. Society's actually moved on because he's harried them, he's reaved them, and like he is like the stuff of legend, but the legend is that like, you know, this is the reaver. And every single depiction's gotten that wrong, but they really got it wrong on the Will Smith one because they just made them like basically fast zombies. And it's like, good, I like fast zombies too, but don't call it I Am Legend. Call it something different. I would have been all about it. Same thing with the Zack Snyder movie. If they hadn't called that Dawn of the Dead, it would have got another full star from me. I thought it was
I'm not Legend.
Yeah. Call it Last Man on Earth. Fuck it.
Call it Legend. Legend I ain't.
I mean, like, I don't know. And like, that's just a pet peeve of mine. And the fact it's amazing that they made 3 movies that have varying levels of being interesting on a book, and no one's gotten it. Like, the thing that makes it more interesting than anything else, and one of the great works of literature of the genre, they've missed it every time. It's amazing. Thank you.
Where did they film at least the parts that I've seen of The Last Man on Earth makes it feel like a long like Twilight Zone segment.
Yeah, and exactly. Which is, look, and those vibes are very much in character for that story. And you know, Vincent Price is good, and it's decent. But yeah, like it's to get like the loneliness of it being like, oh no, stuff has changed, which again, the scene where he first walks out, like, where the hell is everybody? And you hear like East Hastings by Godspeed crank up. It's like, that's one of the most effective, those moments I can think of in cinematic history. Personally.
Hello.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really.
And then that Pepsi product placement doesn't even bother me.
He doesn't have a chance to do like the what
Caitlyn Jenner comes up with a Pepsi. No.
He doesn't have a. All I wanted was a Pepsi. Just one Pepsi. But like he doesn't really have a chance to do the like what would you do if you were suddenly in an abandoned city thing, because you know the action happens so fast, which I appreciate about it. A lot of times when they do like an empty city, they have like someone being like woo, and then they're like running something and like you know.
There's the scene of them having and Dawn of the Dead does this too. But there's always you need to have a transitory scene of them like just enjoying. I guess you could
having a goof, like, you know, we're driving around with a mannequin now. Oh, it's crazy.
Although I just realized there are. I mean, I guess there are aspects of this, like with the supermarket shopping thing of them.
That's the closest you get.
They're supposed to get. He just laughs and he like leaves his card, and I mean, there's also the shot of the bored soldiers, you know, doing donuts with a taxi cab.
Yeah,
but yeah,
there's less. There's not a lot of fat on this movie. There's not a lot of like flippancy.
Zero fat on one of the characters. Yeah.
I would say that
and we certainly see he's not hiding anything either.
Yeah.
I really appreciate one thing about this movie, because it's the next scene after the grocery cart thing when they get the flat tire. And then the rats run, and this is a very English thing, I think.
Well, and like so the tunnel's blocked with like a bunch of wreckage, right? And Brendan Gleeson's like, "Fuck it, we're going over the top," right? And then and they have like a moment like where they're kind of like excited, like, "Oh well, I can't believe we're doing this." Yeah, but then the tire blows, and then just here comes the plague of rats. Great.
Which is, I think it's just something that, I mean, you know, we kind of established cities in America at a later date than like, you know, somewhere that like England, where they would have had, you know, centuries of people just dying from rat plagues.
But one of my favorite things about the Strain novels, which they turned into a TV show. The TV show is very, very, very different from the books.
Both written by GDT.
Yeah. No, the movie, I mean, the books, they actually had like the rats running from the vampires in it.
Yeah.
Which is you know, not that far off from what happened in this movie.
No, they have a lot of cool stuff like that in that in the Strain, which, you know, I mean, it comes from a whole lifetime of Guillermo del Toro kind of doing these movies where he can actually write to the point where he's visualized all of this stuff in this world, which is kind of cool.
Look at like Kronos and stuff, you know. I mean, I don't want to get.
But the thing is that the books are drastically different than the movie or the TV show, because
they rushed the last book into what, like half a season.
Oh, not only that, they rushed the first book too. Like the first half of the first book is like the first episode.
All right, save for the book club. What did you say, Jeremy?
Oh no, I just
book day extravaganza.
We like to read. What can I say?
I just saying that I hadn't. I hadn't actually read the book. Because I think at one point in this this might be, we could use this as a transition point, but because genre popularity always has a cycle, I want to hear everybody's opinion. When do you think that zombies effectively got fucked out, for lack of a better word, as like a worthwhile genre before, you know, as the executives once described of Star Trek, people just have franchise fatigue. Like, when do you think it finally kind of where it was so? I mean, I would say this is someone who participated in many a zombie walk. Remember zombie walks?
Yeah.
That, at what point?
Right of the Living Dead in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's a zombie pub crawl, and like bands play at different stops on there, and it's amazing. I played it a few times. It's super fantastic because there's nobody there, and then there's a swarm of zombies you see coming down the road. It's like, holy crap! They
still have one in the next town over every once in a while, but it's not like one of the big city ones. I think that this movie kind of is an interesting point to talk about this, because it feels like, you know, the slow zombie genre, right? Like, kind of
it was stale. The genre was pretty stale.
Yeah, and it feels like a lot of the movies since this have been inspired by the idea of like fast zombies and you know, notions about pandemics rather than kind of keeping it vague and you know, instilling it within this pop cultural space that I don't think George A. Romero wanted to do, because he wanted to tell, you know, this timeless story of human communication and you know, that wasn't foregrounding zombies as a like as the real threat, right? Like, we're the real threat to each other, which is something that Robert Kirkman kind of jumped off of a lot with the Walking Dead comics. But like but so for it to kind of be more terrifying again, or to be terrifying again, it's kind of fascinating that this movie, it feels like it's the moment where it was like, well, what if we made them really fast, and it's a bloodborne illness that anyone can get, and then like it's still about human communication, but we're kind of grounding it more in the space of like now and kind of revitalizing it. And to find out that that's kind of just an accident with you know, with Danny Boyle just being like, well, why can't they be fast, is kind of hilarious. Like
yeah, it's kind of amazing, because like it's like an accidental innovation, right? And that's and again, at the time, the zombie genre was like pretty tired. It was pretty much exclusively like subgenre video store fare at this point. And like, you get things like Shaun of the Dead, you get Zombieland, you get the Zack Snyder movie, you get World War Z, that kind of breathes some new life into it. Walking Dead, of course, being the best example, because it transcended into the overall zeitgeist, like the larger culture, rather than just being horror aficionados and whatnot. But then I think there's something kind of post Zombieland where the wave kind of breaks a little bit, and people are kind of like, all right, enough with the zombies already.
Yeah, Left 4 Dead, or in the zombie modes.
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was saying also Left 4 Dead.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
And the Walking Dead games, which actually was, you know, kind of, that was Telltale Games' breakthrough, which was a licensed property. Funny that, but
wasn't it kind of like I don't know if it was the original Telltale one, but there was one of them that was a lot like Pokemon Go. Like, you were like in a I'm serious. I'm not doing the Hillary Clinton bit. There's a Pokemon
Go to the apocalypse.
So there's a Pokemon Go style.
Pokemon Go to the brains.
Well, no, but there was the first Telltale series where it was a mix of. Actually, it was the closest. We're talking about like a backdoor introduction to visual novels to like a bunch of like Westerners who would never have previously touched it.
This is a video game. This is video game stuff.
Yeah, this is video game stuff.
Okay.
There is the but genre, because once we hit, I think the other thing is, once we hit 2008, when finally nerd culture subsumes,
it becomes
all
mainstream.
Well, it not just becomes mainstream. It subsumes because all of the studio heads realize that, hey, wait a minute, this is the easiest way to make money, is just to sell, as Rich Evans said, people like their logos, sell the most like easily recognizable, franchisable stuff ever, and so everything became like nerd shit. it. But I think at some point, no, there was a thing where it just there was so much of it everywhere. In
Nerds tend to have a disposable income that they can use to buy trinkets, which I'm not saying that other people don't, but like they're very quick to do that.
Well, you gotta remember this was the. And like Patton Oswalt has written about how like being a nerd kid in the 80s versus later is that at some point, I think even John Hodgman has talked about this too, but before
to be a subject matter expert in like nerdy stuff took work and effort and dedication, whereas now it's just in the zeitgeist around.
But also remember the high school thing, because like nerds were like unpopular, like they weren't cool, and like and so like they weren't cool, and they weren't a legitimate audience, and so like nobody wanted their dirty. But John Hodgman has talked on the Blank Check episode that they did on Evil Dead 2. He's talked about being Bruce Campbell's book agent, because that was how he got into things. Right. Yeah. And he talked about how like trying to pitch the idea, trying to like effectively pitch Bruce Campbell. He's like, here you have this guy who, when he's outside of the convention hall, he's just this nice, good-looking, good guy. The front of this guy never. Inside the convention hall, he is Elvis. Where he and try to say like, hey, there's an entire
like Barbara Crampton, or like any of the number of other actors that are known to a certain genre. Yeah.
But it's
I feel like Evil Dead was definitely on the forefront of that, right? Like Bruce Campbell is. As someone that wasn't trying to build himself into like a presence outside of that world, right? Like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell kind of both, like not trying to build themselves into like, oh, this is a stepping stone to doing, to doing things for a more normalized audience. It's like they have captured that as their audience.
But Bruce tried though. You got to remember, he tried. He screen tested. He got as far as screen testing for The Phantom, which later went to Billy Zane. And the year before The Phantom came out, he was Briscoe County.
Briscoe County Jr. was great.
Well, I mean, even before that, I did soap operas in the 80s. Yeah. He did. He did audition for a lot of bigger roles, but he found a weird niche doing like it was that the evil cop movie, Maniac Cop 2, and
he played Ronald Reagan on TV.
Waxworks too, and but like those
Fargo.
Yeah, this is before
that's 20 years later. This is
this is him trying to build. This is classic after party shit, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're not doing an after party tonight.
I know.
But I just wanted to mention, because what the kicker was that I think part of what like the zombie genre, if you will, the subgenre gets consumed a lot quicker, burns out, because by the time. Yeah, there you go. It infects enough people that it goes through so much, because like by 08, but by 08, it's like before all of nerdy stuff was just kid stuff. That was same with science fiction until Star Wars like, hey, well, you can make a lot of money. This isn't just kid stuff. And it became all of a sudden like a lot of people were like, well, we don't care if it's uncool, and like all of those people we hated in high school or whatever, were they into it? It's like now they finally, video games became a thing that started. That was the odds was when video games began to overtake Hollywood in terms of like worldwide sales and generation and then at some point they realized, hey, wait a minute, we have these massive audiences who will very happily spend a lot of it's like people and this is before Funko Pops, it's kind of a thing where they will buy, no matter you put some shit out with this label stamped on it, people will buy it.
You can do anything with it. I think that the overall eye of the zeitgeist kind of moved from zombies to vampires for a while. There was those Fakakta Twilight movies that I just refused to watch, but by the same token, there was like Let the Right One In, Only Lovers Left Alive, et cetera, that were breathing in like kind of new life to a genre that really hadn't seen much innovation, because there had been the same kind of vampire stories told over and over and over again. And even though like you can say a lot of good things about like Interview with the Vampire, you can say a lot of bad things as well. And I think that things moved over from zombies to vampires for a bit, and then obviously then superheroes, et cetera, et cetera. That's a whole thing in and of itself. But I do think it's notable that like this is way before nerd culture was mainstream.
Yes.
Well,
it was like not just on the outside; it was like the outermost of the outside. Like it
Yeah,
was
this
like,
was this was like this was pretty much like fan
convention shit. Yeah, exactly. Comic
Well,
Con.
so we kind of talked about it with Deborah Voorhees when we talked to her about 13 Fanboy last year.
Voorhees.
All right, whatever.
It's the same name as
Jason Voorhees. Yeah, I still probably mispronounced that too. Anyway,
yeah, no, he did that the entire time.
Yeah,
I was always correcting him.
So we talked about conventions with her because that the movie she made 13 Fanboy was like about an obsessed fan.
Yeah, it's a love letter to the convention scene too.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about like realizing that you're in this horror scene, and with her it was like like slasher films, but like realizing that you're kind of within this this space, and like people are really into your work within that, but like maybe it doesn't have wide stream appeal outside of that. And I think that this movie kind of is before that kind of started, but like it's right before it, right? Like
it was
put all the conventions.
There were
on
conventions
YouTube
around before. I mean, I remember in '86 meeting Robert Englund and Leonard Nimoy and Sylvester McCoy at a convention.
Yeah, but that's not as niche as like I mean, having conventions kind of around, like we have conventions for every.
Yeah, but this is 1986 in Atlanta. This is.
I feel like I'm at a moving extravaganza convention right now. Let me tell you.
This is kind of before they had the Wizard Worlds and the Comic Cons and whatever. Like this is before those things were thought about. Yeah. This was still like I mean, let's not forget America killed Doctor Who with our bad healthcare system at a convention in Georgia.
And Eric Roberts was to blame yet again.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the second Doctor. He had a heart attack and got subpar healthcare because of our...
shit. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I completely forgot about that story.
And that happened in Georgia. Where the conventions that I was going to, I didn't make it to that one.
All right, come on, bring it in. It's enough.
All right, here's a clip of the actual shooting process of this movie.
Thank you, please, thank you. Let's get back on track, folks.
Yeah, we went way off track, but these are just fun scenes. These are just fun scenes of shooting 28 days later.
Slightly Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hear what happened? They knew, but also the people that had to tell us that how they people working in the area banging.
We're put back a week on that, aren't we? So what are we doing instead?
Not sure yet. We might do it later, we might not.
Might go to the Lake District.
We might not.
Right.
We're thinking hiatus week is now, we're now
packed, isn't it?
We're packed with pickups.
Oh, God.
I love pickups though.
I like pickups actually.
Because you do a lot of them at the set, at the studio.
Kind of amazing that they had to make the teeth worse in England.
The big book of British smile.
Now that stuff cracks eventually. It sort of has to dry first and then stretch it.
Practical effects, baby.
Rather than it's easier once you've got your back to the line.
We could talk over it. I just thought some of the stuff was kind of cool.
No, it is. I mean, and like I think that one of the things that makes this movie interesting is there's people right around. Like it's not
people killing people.
Physical, actual people. Yeah.
Not a cell phone to be found. Just vibing.
I like watching them pull the cars out and like move them
Yeah.
around in this tunnel too.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like Brendan Gleeson's always been old.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like Wilford Brimley that way.
Yeah, I feel like he looked like that when he was 12. That's what I feel like.
There we go, digital camera. No, but he's only like 48 in this movie, so it's kind of weird to see him now. And he's like SNL put out the promo of him, or someone looking a lot like him, busted tricks on a skateboard in the studio.
We only have to watch like another minute of this. I just thought some of these shots were kind of cool.
I think it's interesting. Like I said, I mean, like try to like do the same thing with like a modern movie, right? It's a bunch of people like reacting to a green screen. Great.
Yeah, that's the key. In certain productions, even when they want to do practical effects, the executives will force CGI on them. Because like otherwise, I guess it's not a serious film or something. The other comment that I did have was like every machine gun in every film that has one always needs to be fired on full auto. Because even in situations where like in a Resident Evil like situation like here where ammo was presumably scarce and not being manufactured anymore, but no, just like full auto, let it go.
Exactly.
Yeah, they wasted so many bullets in this. One thing that I think is interesting is that this movie was at the beginning of the DVD age, where people really started thinking about like what would be in the DVD extras and stuff. So there's a commentary where they're talking about like the extra shots that they took in London. And they're like, no, we just
did they film a TV of it?
No, it was just like their commentary over like the deleted scene, and they were like, yeah, we thought about like people are really gonna like the London scenes, so like let's shoot some more of them so we can.
I kind of wish that was more of a thing now, because I feel like that's just gone away now, and it's like we're back to just the movie being the thing. And I mean, you're lucky if people like don't skip past the credits,
Yeah, they need to figure out a way to how to reinvigorate. Nice. They need to figure out a way how to reinvigorate the commentary track, because there are. With certain films, the commentary track is like it is as entertaining, if not more entertaining than the film. Like watching
Spinal Tap, like it's basically a whole nother movie because they do it in character. It's amazing,
right? Or the what was it? I think it's not Cannibal, it's Orgasmo. At Orgasmo, like Trey and Matt and Dean and like all their friends are getting progressively drunker as the film goes on.
Oh, that's Cannibal too.
Was it Cannibal too? Okay, because like though that one, I remember at one point, because it's done. We were at one point they get bored, like shit. How much more time does this movie have left? And at one point, you can hear that like Trey wanders off into the kitchen. He's like, "Hey, what do we want to do after this? Let's go to the titty bar." Like, yeah, titty bar. It's like you can hear him off in the kitchen calling a cab to come pick them up because they're almost finished recording the movie. It's a
that might be Orgasmo, but they did get drunk in Cannibal as well.
Yeah, and it's
the Tropic Thunder commentary track is really good because Robert Downey Jr. is still in character. So
Nice.
he just decides to do the entire commentary track still in character as Australian guy playing a black guy.
I love the Arnold Schwarzenegger ones because he's always just like he just describes what's happening on screen, and there's
and then I do this, yeah.
It's so funny.
Let me describe what's about to happen on screen, because it is time for Letterboxd one-liners. Letterboxd, of course, is a place for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the films they love, the films that they didn't love, the films that have people they're weirdly thirsty for. Bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say, not just Siskel's and Eberts. Everybody gets to chime in. Best expressed in the classic working your tight five in front of the brick wall. One-liner format, at least for the purposes of this bit. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for 28 days later. Man, Cillian's had a rough week. That's a great background for that too, by the way. I love it.
I like how it was a few days ago too.
This sucks.
being chased by Michael Myers. Look at it.
That's gonna be Michael Myers, actually. Yeah,
better Michael Myers sequel than Halloween Ends.
Don't even get me started. Danny Boyle had 5 pounds, the worst camera at the Best Buy clearance sale, and a dream.
It's weird how great and shitty this film looks at the same time.
It really
absolutely incredible.
does.
Somebody was commenting, yeah, the Blu-ray and the DVD are just the same disc. Garbage, early aughts, SD DV.
Yeah,
I like the
bootlegs in the official release look exactly the same.
I like how they make it stylized in the hospital, which you don't have to do. Like, there's no reason for it to be stylized in the hospital. You know what I mean? Like,
other than Danny Boyle's doing it, so it has to be that. But
it's got to get some Dutch angles in there. It's
well, no, that's not the part that I think is weird. Like, it's just like he did something like there's a hyper focus, and then he stylized the actual phones. So the phones are in frame, and then he's like, I don't know. It's
to make it unsettling, but it is a little bit much. But it's fine. It's fine. That monkey at the beginning that had the bad news being fed to him all at once is the equivalent to your average day on Twitter. True facts. That is just
the eco-terrorist point that you guys made, though. Like, there's something to the fact that I feel like at least they establish it later on, like they're trying to cure rage as like a thing. So it's like they're kind of doing the most horrifically grotesque way of trying to fix like a human problem, like for the better. And then I feel like the eco-terrorists that come in and try to free the apes are trying to do something good, but doing it like in the worst possible way, not listening to the guy that's like, hey, don't do that, they're infected. So it's like kind of on both ends. I feel like they're trying to do something good for humanity in a way, but just completely missing each other at the same time. It's human error at its finest, I guess.
Just like Twitter. Yeah. Excellent balls, Mr. Murphy. And by the way, can we look at the tag there, hanging dong?
Yeah, I get flashbacks to this interview of Sylvester Stallone from
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man, yeah, where he's just like, yeah, I'm just glad I was having a good nude day.
It's times like this that Christina is very missed. I would love to see a reaction to that.
I do appreciate that Cillian Murphy was going was willing to go completely cold and floppy. Like
he was hanging brain, man. It was just right there.
But he wasn't hanging brain. Like it was at its most flaccid, and he was willing to do that rather than trying to juice it up a little bit and make it sexy. It's not sexy. You're waking up in a hospital bed. You probably haven't had anything. You're dehydrated as fuck or whatever at this point. Like your dick is not full on hanging brain. Your dick is close to your body. I feel like
I feel like you and I have different definitions of hanging brain, but we don't need to get into it. I don't think that means that like the ball and cock are at like peak perfection and presentation.
No, I feel like
he's like turtle dick right now, but that's okay.
I'm just saying. I feel like hanging brain is more relaxed. This isn't this is like an awakening, I guess.
This is more dong discourse than I expected, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy, hot. Zombies, desperate. Me, desperate and hot for Cillian Murphy.
Hanging brain.
More like remove sunglasses, zombies.
Oh,
wow.
Yep. There you go, folks.
Meet the new boss.
Audrey had the zombies today.
Man, they just did that yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah,
Watch,
I guess so.
Watch 24th of October 2022. Yeah.
Okay.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. I didn't even catch that. Repent. The end is extremely fucking nigh.
That's the most British line in the whole movie too, I think.
So fucking good.
And there's so many British. The humor in this is extremely British. Like the when he gets them in the cab and he's like, I don't take credit cards or whatever, like credit cards or checks. Yeah.
I love it. Like the first thing the guy says to him whenever he gets dragged into the little shop is just like, it tells that bad joke about a giraffe walks into a bar. Guy and a giraffe walks into a bar. The giraffe passes out.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, Well, what is happening right now?
Well, also, but that was the one nice touch of like because he's in a cab, he starts the meter as they leave, and then once they get to Manchester, you can see a shot that it's like up to like something like 450 quid or something on the meter.
Well, it's the same thing as the consumer products, right? Like it's using commerce, I think, to try to further your. Well, maybe you just charge them. I don't know. You didn't see that, but I feel like it's using consumerism, using commerce to like try to feel more normal in a society that's completely emptied and where money has no value, where you could just kind of walk into a grocery store and take whatever you want. But it's like comforting to know the meter's running.
There you go. Well, I think the end is extremely fucking nigh is pretty amazing, and it's one of the things that made me fall in love with this movie when I very first saw it. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
There's another line I have to try to find it, but that made it really funny. Christopher Eccleston has a line when he first meets up with him that I thought was pretty hilarious, and I was like, this is like British. This is like British humor at its finest. Like it's the most dry possible thing.
I got a nosebleed with the humor.
I haven't finished watching this yet, but I was talking to a guy about it, and he described the film as the one with the virus that makes people really cross. Really cross.
Yeah. That is not. That is very much not an American review. So
no, absolutely. Very cross.
I ran it under a cold tap.
Exactly. Good call back. IMDb said that Cillian Murphy spends 30% of this movie shirtless or naked, also known as my favorite movie genre.
Yeah, it seems like Cillian Murphy was like the Benedict Cumberbatch before there was a Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh yeah, I know. Plenty of female friends of mine were all about that dude.
Oh, so that Cillian Murphy says a thing where he's like, "Oh, great, Valium. Not only will we be able to sleep, but if we're attacked tonight, none of us will care."
Yeah, that's a great line. Huh? Why was this filmed with a pink Motorola Razr?
It's just so on point.
No punctuation, all lowercase letters. Yeah, no, yeah. When you're right, you're right.
I didn't want to be a fuss, so I filmed this on my pink Motorola Razr.
It's so good. Anyway, those are the Letterboxd one-liners. For 28 Days Later, please follow the show, which is your host Forrest over there, Moving Extravaganza. Follow me, Kona Neutron. I'm all over that biz. I got a whole bunch of stuff I need to log. I'm behind on everything. Andy, Filmed in Shitio World, is watching all the weird stuff so you don't have to, or maybe so that you can. So follow him on there. Jeremy, are you a Letterboxd user? I don't remember. This isn't a peer pressure situation.
no, I am not. I have my film takes I would just unleash on the world through my just by yakking on my podcast, which is currently on hiatus. One day might return. We'll figure something out. Until then, I have nothing to plug other than people should watch This Is Revolution. It's another YouTube podcast thing. It's worthwhile.
I've never heard of them. Are they?
I should specify that's a yes or no question in the future, because I feel like there's a lot of derivations to go on there. Not that I disagree with anything you just said, but James World, please take us away with the plugs.
Yes. Tight transition for the plugs too. Thank you, Jeremy. YouTube, thanks while you're watching us on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell.
Get radicalized. That's the thing you do on YouTube, yes. Right? You get radicalized.
Get radicalized.
Sorry. That was a record interruption. Like I let him go like a second and a half before.
Well, it's the ads that really do it. I mean, like, you get on there and you just see like a PragerU ad and you're like, what the fuck is this? Now I'm alt-right.
Now I hate minorities and I want tax breaks. I'm like,
yes. And if you want to hear more about this, we have a Twitter account.
You can go on there once you're radicalized. You just go on to Twitter and start plugging out your opinions.
Yeah, but no, absolutely follow us all on Twitter. Follow the show on Twitter to get updates, and we have a Twitter community. Which Jeremy, I don't think I've ever invited you. I keep forgetting to.
I would take serious offense at that.
I feel bad because it'd be a good place for him to vent his spleen about movies he's watched.
I'll invite him to the freaking thing already.
I'll do that now. I just kind of realized while I'm doing this.
Well, why don't you finish your bit and I'll do it?
Yeah.
I think side note, I think the only movie I really ever had to really vent my spleen about was Prometheus, where I had to subject both my friend and
I wish they'd done less spleen venting in that movie. It was enough.
Yeah, like I had to it's like I couldn't shut up a lot at the point. Even I'm dropping my friend, me and my partner dropped my friend off at our apartment. I had to go in and I had to like pace back and forth for half an hour, just ripping into that stupid movie. Anyway,
not great.
Yeah, it's amazing. But we have a Patreon that you should support. The Patreon gets you access to after.
That's quite the transition. Oh yeah, by the way, give us money. Sorry, go ahead.
If you like hearing us go off topic,
yeah. You can hear all about it.
Yeah, on our after parties, which you can have access to forever.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. It's
after party forever,
but not tonight. Wait till
Not
Friday
tonight.
for that shit. And actually, that's more gonna be a wrap up show than after party. But other than that, all those things are true. Yes, Andy, go.
Because the rage has made us strong.
So, Conan, you have a protonic reversal this week.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea, huh? Yeah. I think I'm having Nick Six from Dazzling Killman and Upright Forms and Sick Bay and Xanax and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Band of Strays. So another one, the Mark Davies from Thinking Failures Union episode. Heard from Matthew Film Guy. He's a big fan. He's a big Thinking Failures fan. So that's been that's still out there. I think the Guy Picciotto episode kind of swamped everyone's attention. But if you're a Thinking Failures fan, that one's pretty good too. But yeah, Nick Sakes this week. So if you don't know who that is, that's okay. But it's gonna be rad.
And you can also support Conan on Patreon too, because he has a Patreon. And you
The
can
Deuce. I have the sequel apparently. It's Patreon too. Moving Extravaganza is on old school Patreon. I'm like Patreon 2 back.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. I was gonna say The Deuce. Yeah, but that's
Patreon 2 paywall boogaloo.
Yes, but no, with the Patreon, you get the episodes of Protonic Reversal a day early.
Yep, a couple days early actually.
Days early. Yeah,
depending how quickly I get them out.
Yes. But you get it before everybody else, and it's
that's
like,
the key. That's the key is to make yourself feel special. So treat yourself.
Yes,
$1 a month.
Support. Yeah, it's only $1.
And give me money also. Thank you.
Yes. And if you really want to give Conan more money, head over to Bandcamp and check out his page. Dangerous Nomenclature is available on vinyl if you're one of those vinyl heads, but you can get it in any audio format except for cassette tape or 8-track.
Yes, exactly. There's so basically CDs and digital. CDs, vinyl, and digital. But we also I haven't done it yet. People have been asking about the new T-shirts, the Rick Froberg T-shirts, and the Dudes Yelling T-shirts. Those are going up later this week. So I just haven't.
I got one of the Dudes Yelling T-shirts.
They've been very popular. So people love Dudes Yelling. Who knew?
And then no shows till November, right?
Yeah, we just played last week in Madison, but yeah, November is going to be the makeup date for Oakland, and then there's a Los Angeles show and Joshua Tree show as well. And then there's a Chicago show at the end of the year, and I'm almost positive that's going to be it until 2023.
All right. And Jeremy said he had no plugs, but This Is Revolution, so everybody check out This Is Revolution.
Hey, you heard of this, Paul? This is Revolution?
How was the live show?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even ask.
Fun.
A hell of a lot of fun. We had actually a bigger audience than expected.
That's excellent.
Went more than a little longer than expected, but it was still people got their money's worth, and there were people there for the meet and greet, and we even had a local met some folks from DSALA there, and they were actually there with the campaigns of a couple of the kind of like local. There's a state assembly and I believe one of the city council candidates, maybe. It was a blur. I got home from Los Angeles yesterday, but it was a grand time, and got it all on audio. And I have to figure out how I'm gonna got the house manager to email me an audio copy of it all. So
that's what I used to do for the TMBS ones when they did the live shows. I would sit there. I would give the guy at the. Usually they do it at the Bell House. I give the Bell House guy my
pass him a 20. There you go.
I would give him my H.
I
think that I have no and like.
It's funnier if you pass him a 20. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
20
don't know,
into
I'd have
that
to ask-
recorder.
I would have had to ask
Yeah.
Michael for that 20. I'm not spending my own money on it. No, but I
Get a
know that they're
receipt.
planning. I know that Ben and Jason are planning another one in New York within at some point. I don't know exactly when, but I was like at the table.
It's being worked out. No things being said publicly yet. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think some people, no names mentioned, have unrealistic expectations about how quickly you can book something. But that's coming from someone that does a lot of my own booking, and it's a crazy time to be booking anything right now. Everything in the world that was rescheduled from 2020 to now is all happening at the same time, and
That's why they got to figure
out.
out getting the Binder bump. Getting bumped up on the list.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'm excited to whenever they do that, which within the next 5 years. But I went to
and maybe I'll actually be able to do the music this time because it couldn't fit in last time.
when they did the Sublation launch, though, I went and hung out with everybody when they had those panels. That was pretty fun. But I imagine that the LA show was much bigger and much more because they kind of just booked a bar that had like a back patio or whatever for the Sublation one, and it was like nobody was really paying attention because it was like outside, and they had like these panels, and everyone was like pretty drunk by the time they had the panels. So there was like a good amount of people in the front that were like trying to listen to the panels that would just keep looking back at everyone that was in the back, including Ben, because he wasn't on the second panel, like just having conversations, and every few seconds you'd hear "Shut the fuck up." From some random like nerdy DSA socialist in the front, and part of me wanted to talk shit back and be like, "Fuck you," but I wasn't gonna do that.
All right, classic after party stuff. Andy, what's next?
Oh, what is next?
I don't know. I don't remember
everything.
where I'm at anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be on a plane in like 7 hours, so let's fucking wrap this up.
All right. Yeah. No, I think the only other thing would just be check out Christina, who's not here, her Patreon. Support her.
Cosmopolitics is the name of the channel, and I believe the Patreon, right?
I believe so too. Yes. And so please support her. She's even though she's not online right now, she is in our hearts.
Always. Yes.
She's live tweeting about how she wishes she was online right now, actually. But I think that dog gets upset when she's dog sitting and the dog starts barking and freaks out whenever she goes online. Which
I feel the same way every time she's not online. I start barking. It's crazy. Andy, you never do your own plugs. You ever thought about that?
Yeah, I should probably do my own plugs. What would I plug? I mean, I
don't want to hear them, but you should probably do them.
Oh yeah, I got it.
Practice them in the mirror, bud.
Well, honestly, we do have a bad takes coming up. We're gonna if you want to talk more zombies, we're doing Valley of the Dead. Well, we're also going to be talking about the Spanish Civil War. So we're kind of using that.
If you like either of those things, then watch the next episode of Bad Takes on wherever that is.
Yeah, with Brenton Langle and
on this channel here.
Oh, is that this channel?
You can catch it on this channel. And tonight I'm gonna press the monetization thing, which hasn't come to much, but it's a fun time. All right, going to final.
You should probably do your plugs. Here forward though, but yeah, make it
I never wrote myself in on my notes, so I have guests and I just have.
You're very.
You have to do that. Well, I forgot to talk about myself. But, all right.
Every week, I'm just like,
that's crazy. Every week, I forget to introduce myself. Every week,
I took it out this week. Anyway, but starting with Jeremy, final thoughts. Anything you wanted to add on this movie?
Yeah, but it's like when Elizabeth Warren tried to do a fact attack on the Cherokee thing. It's like nobody cares. People are just gonna say it for forever now. So you're gonna be like, oh, you forgot to introduce yourself, huh? It's not even in the intro. Nobody cares. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I took my Cherokee ancestry out of the intro.
Right, Jeremy, what are your final thoughts on this?
Final thoughts is this is Leo, and he is a very demanding food demander. No, enjoyed the film. Thanks for having me. It was interesting seeing it because I had never actually seen the film all the way through since the original.
Oh, no kidding.
Theatrical thing 19 years ago. Like I said, zombies got just exhausted as a genre, and it was so unpleasant that I just didn't feel the need to go back.
Dead had a lot to do with that.
I think Walking Dead has entirely thing to do that. Even though it's
I'm exhausted hearing you guys talk about it.
I think. Well, I mean, I never watched the show, but it's kind of thing where it's its own like cottage industry down in Atlanta. So where they even have like schools for people on how to like zombie walk.
I bring this up every time it's invoked on this show, which is a lot this month. But it's a show that's managed to jump the shark multiple times, which most
it's jumped the shark. It jumps the shark
multiple times. Yeah, it's crazy.
It jumps the shark literally once a season.
They'll recover and then they'll jump the shark again, and then they'll
Killing
recover,
Carl, jump the shark. Rick just suddenly disappearing, and apparently, and who knows where I stopped watching at that point. It's jumped the shark so many fucking times.
Straight up cocaine decisions. Anyway,
no, the one thing that I do think is funny though is this movie starts in London the same way that, and fucking Cillian Murphy's like Irish. This movie starts in London the same way that that Walking Dead does, and the whole thing with why Andrew Lincoln left The Walking Dead is he was like, I want to go back to England, but like this is that was that movie pretty much in Georgia. Yeah. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's 28 days later. He could have just been British if he really wanted to. Carl. But yeah.
You could have been British, Carl. Is it me?
Yeah, it's you.
This film is absolutely completely necessary to be included in Zombie Night Extravaganza as we look over the entire genre. And that is even with the like, well, they really actually affected people. Yeah, I fucking get it. Go back to Reddit with that crap. Doesn't matter because, again,
it's been in the chat that's like not technically a zombie movie, but that's brought that into this, by the way. It's you that's inserted that into the chat. I never did.
Okay. But it's so influential that some of the things that it has caused to be influenced are things that we just take as almost for granted in the genre now. And it did re-energize the world of this type of filmmaking and this type of movie that was, not to be overly cute about it, completely dead. Like, it was, as a genre, was dead. There was no innovation happening with it whatsoever. And it did lead to some ripoffs of it, including like, okay, the zombies are fast. Well, okay, if they're actual zombies instead of infected people, how are they actually have means of locomotion to do that? Whatever, who cares? That's fine, but it may seem kind of quaint now, but this was like one of the big game changers to the zombie movie. And I love that Danny Boyle basically didn't care about anything that had happened before and was just going to do his own thing, and kind of inadvertently did that. I love the pink Motorola Razr video of it all, and I think it's beautiful, and I think it's a perfect example of innovative filmmaking, as we've gone over and over with all these different types of movies, of just like people innovating out of necessity and to end up like making something cool. Perfect example of this. And I love that this is a movie that like he just got super frustrated by Hollywood and how these Hollywood movies were made, and decided to just get like down and dirty with it. And I still going to reiterate the fact that it's astounding to me that, first of all, he got a Godspeed You Black Emperor song on a motion picture, but had a dude make sound-alikes to it that started a sound-alike industry and that is still to this day still happening. And all this is ancillary to the fact it's a good movie. It's a fucking good movie. I saw it in the theater multiple times when it came out. We didn't talk about the ending. There are alternate endings that were shot, including one where Cillian Murphy's character just dies. I think it would have been ill-fitting to do that, and I think it would have actually diminished it as a film to have done that. I like the ending. I think the ending is good, and I think it's perfect for the time, because remember, this is pre-Katrina. This is pre-institutions failing us culturally on a major, large consensus zeitgeist-wise. So it's important to get into that mindset when you're watching this, because again, this is almost 20 years ago, like Jeremy pointed out, and we're in a very different spot now, but this is a goddamn good movie, and still fucks.
One thing that with movies that have literally copied this, like YouTube kept recommending me some movie called Patient Zero, which is exactly
it's the same thing. It's the same movie.
This movie, except for with Stanley Tucci, and it has a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Sounds terrible. Sounds like Andy will be reviewing it shortly. Also, they made a sequel to this. Don't watch it; it's awful. But
I would say the opening scene is phenomenal.
It's fine. Then
turn it off the movie just goes right downhill from there.
But they have talked about making a third one that would be Boyle directing and Garland writing. And Cillian Murphy said he would do it if it all came together, that would be something I would be interested in. Because
so
that would be,
Alex Garland said that he has an actual like idea, like he had a specific idea for something he wanted to do as like a last, I guess, project for this franchise, which kind of
which say what you will about that dude's films, and I'll like argue either side. He's a big idea guy. Like he's good with the ideas. Like he's like in another era, he would have come up doing Twilight Zone episodes or something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so but I think that's kind of more appealing to me, probably to everybody, than just saying like, hey, we're gonna make a third version of this because we can.
Yeah,
but like
who gives a shit about that?
we're gonna make a third version of this because the guy that wrote the original one has like an idea to do is kind of far more interesting.
And that's genuinely exciting to me. And I'm not someone that generally puts a lot of stock in sequels or a lot of, I think there's too many things that are franchised that don't need to be franchised as well. But the fact that it would be those three would be like, okay, that's cool. I'm into that. And whatever that is, I'm into checking that out. So maybe that happens. Who knows? I'll be here for it.
All right. Well, Andy, and remember, Jeremy has to feed his cat.
Yeah. This movie, I remember the first time I watched it, I was really confused because I thought that Cillian Murphy was one of the protesters that broke in for a while, and then he starts talking about being a bicycle guy, and I'm like, wait, what did I miss? But like,
You didn't see the scene where he woke up in the hospital?
Yeah, I thought that's why he was in the hospital. But I didn't, because I didn't know who anybody was. I couldn't pick Cillian Murphy.
I just watched this.
Are you face blind?
I just watched this movie 2 days ago.
Honestly, I probably wasn't paying attention the first time I ever watched it, but that was like a long time ago.
Right.
I was probably like, drawing.
Why does he go last again? Why does he go last? No,
tradition,
I guess.
But anyways, yeah, no. So it was weird the first time I ever saw this movie, but like,
you can tell who anybody was, like a grandma. Who is that? Who are they?
Yeah.
Hey,
what are they
why
doing
are you
here?
coming into my house and why is the parents dead? I don't get this.
I don't like this film.
There's 2 Cillian Murphys now.
Is this film about shopping? I don't want to watch it.
No, I was probably like doing artwork at the time and just had it on in the
think?
background. I wasn't really paying attention.
Shocking.
But I was very confused the first time I watched it. But like one of the
Sounds
things
like
that drives me nuts is the fact that it does look so beautiful and so bad at the same time. Those shots in London with the morning light hitting everybody. Those should, those are incredible shots. And with that weird thing that they did with the film, it's just like this
buffering.
Yeah, the opening's really creepy too. I'll give it that. Like I think they did a really good job shooting the woman struggling with a fucking ape on her and then vomiting blood. It literally,
yes.
I this is the first time I've watched it. Had a fucking anxiety attack during that scene.
It's
I
absolutely anxiety.
It's just like, and I'm so glad that one of my favorite musical groups, which I just, Handsome Furs, did a music video.
I think I say blood vomit.
They actually do
Rage all over the machine.
Except where they're like, Handsome Furs are playing a house party, and somebody comes in infected, and the whole party gets infected, and then one of the band members gets infected and starts chasing after the other band member, and it is like one of the most haunting music videos you'll ever see, and it all owes itself to this movie.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you guys the ride's over, and I don't take credit cards and I don't take checks.